Welcome back everyone, I'm Michael and today we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This post was created in 2023 in the Entitled Parents subreddit by a user named GreenTempest75. The post is titled, "I want to live with my brother, but my parents forbade me." I, 14M, have been wanting to share this story for a long time. It's a long story, so be patient. I know it might sound like a lie, but believe me, I wanted it to be more than anything. This has ruined my family, and I'm not allowed to talk about it because my parents want to forget what they did. So just to be safe, I'm using my friend's brother's Reddit account. Well, my parents had lost their partners. My father separated from my older sister Lucy's mother, currently 25 years old. My mother lost her ex-husband in a car accident and had to take care of my brother, currently 23 years old. That turned them into single parents with custody of their children. The two met on the beach, and after they talked and exchanged their numbers, they started dating. 2 years later, they got married. Well, let's stop rambling and get to the story. It all started when I was 8 years old and my brothers were 17 and 19. My brother was in his third year of high school and my sister was working at the grocery store near our house. While my parents and sister worked, I stayed with Kirby. It may seem strange, but the best moments of my life were when Kirby was with me. I know that a lot of older brothers don't get along with younger ones, but that wasn't the case. I loved Kirby with all my heart, and I know he loved me too. He always took care of me, played and studied with me, and sometimes took the scolding for me. Then one day, everyone was leaving school. I was waiting for Kirby in front of my school because our schools were close, so he always came to pick me up. But this time, it was different. He didn't come. I stayed until 4 p.m. when my sister came to pick me up. I asked about my brother, but she didn't answer. She just avoided the conversation. When we got home, I was surprised by the sound of things breaking in the house and the frightening screams of my parents. When we entered the house, the scene couldn't have been worse. Kirby was falling to the floor as my father kicked him and threw dishes at him, and my mother screamed horrible curses at Kirby. I was so scared I didn't leave my sister's side, who took me upstairs and told me not to leave the room until further notice. I stayed there listening and crying. I had never seen my family like that, and I can say now that I am still afraid of them no matter how old I am. Then all of a sudden I heard a siren. When I got to the window, I saw 2 vehicles and many policemen got out of them and soon entered the house. A little later, I heard more screams and a voice of arrest. Then I saw my father and mother being taken by force by the police to the vehicle. My parents screamed horrible words at my brother, saying he was a miserable worm who deserved to be killed. My mother always agreed. After they were put in the car, I went downstairs and it was terrifying. Lucy was crying on the floor with Kirby in her arms. He was completely bloodied and full of bruises. After that scene, I just remember everything being a blur. I only recall being inside an ambulance and at the hospital. It was more like a dream, but my sister disagrees and says it was a nightmare and the worst day of her life. About 3 days later, my parents were still in jail for assault and attempted murder, so my sister took a few days off to look after me. I finally plucked up the courage and asked my sister what had happened. Lucy, being the first person to ever treat me like an adult, told me the truth. Our brother Kirby had been accused of rape by a girl in high school. The girl went to the principal, screaming and bruised, saying that Kirby had abused her. Our parents and the girl's parents were called to school, and even the police were involved. Although Kirby explained to our parents that he didn't do it, they wouldn't listen and took the girl's side. The police said they would investigate and run some tests, so Kirby and the girl were able to go home, and then the incident occurred. Now my brother was hospitalized with the risk of having major physical problems because the beating did a lot of damage to his body. The next day, the police called my sister to the station, and she had to take me with her. What they revealed to us was terrifying to say the least. Apparently, it was Karen, the girl who made the report. Karen, if you're reading this, know that you are the most despicable person I know. I hope you burn in hell, you bastard. You destroyed our lives. Karen had made a false report because she and Kirby hated each other at school. After another fight between the two, she hurt herself and planned to say he hit her. Then she escalated it to a accusation, thinking that she could get my brother expelled from school, but the bitch made a mistake. She told her friends during a video call and laughed about the situation. What she didn't count on was that everyone would turn against her, except her best friend who had really suffered sexual abuse when she was little, and no one believed her until recently. Karen's former best friend went to the police station and told them everything. She also managed to record part of the conversation after Karen confessed. The police questioned Karen, and for fear of being arrested, she confessed the truth. My sister was furious. She wanted to kill Karen at that moment, but the police calmed her down, saying that Karen's parents would have to pay a fine for the false accusation and slander. My sister thought it was good, but not enough. When we got back home, our parents were there. As soon as my sister saw them, she exploded. She told them everything that had happened at the police station while screaming, and they listened in silence, getting more and more surprised with each sentence. By the time my sister was done, my mom was already in tears and my dad was still paralyzed. Then he did the worst thing possible. He asked, "Are you sure about this?" That was the worst choice of words I had ever heard. Lucy gave a long speech about how they were bad parents to believe the situation without any proof. My dad tried to justify that the girl's word was worth a lot, but my sister refuted by saying that without evidence, her words were worthless. I know that unfortunately, many victims are called liars when their claims are not proven, but this case is different. Karen lied and deceived everyone for a petty reason. My father was defeated after that, and for several days the house was silent. It wasn't the same without Kirby. He was the soul of the house, good and kind to almost everyone. He always brought joy to all of us. To this day, I don't know how my parents fell so easily for Karen's lies. I hate them for that, and I will never forgive them for what they did. After a long time, Kirby had woken up, but only to see his poor condition. His jaw was broken, he lost 60% of the vision in one eye, his arm and forearm were broken, his ribs were badly damaged, and he narrowly missed puncturing his lung. His leg was so badly damaged that he will never walk properly again without help. He also presented with post-traumatic stress, depression, and anxiety. My brother was never the same. He still feels severe pain and needs to take a lot of controlled medication. He did not speak for weeks, and when the device that held his jaw in place was removed, it didn't change much. He only spoke when we asked a question. He didn't speak when he was hungry, and many times he started crying out of nowhere, likely due to the trauma. I wanted to hug him, but his wounds were so severe that it was risky. Many times, my parents tried to visit my brother. My mother begged, and my father wanted to force us to take them, but my sister forbade them because she knew that the last thing my brother wanted was to see them. She told them that, but it wasn't enough. One day, my mother couldn't visit him because of work, and my parents saw that as a good opportunity to visit my brother in secret. I think in their minds, it would be like this. Let's visit our son, ask for apologies, he accepts, we'll be fine, and we'll be one big happy family again. Haha, their serious mistake. As soon as they entered the room, my brother gave the loudest scream I had ever heard from him. Soon, the doctors and nurses entered the room to try to calm my brother. He said, "Get them out of here. They are murderers. They have come to kill me. Please, get them out of here." Soon after, he started crying and then passed out due to stress. Of course, my parents were expelled and forbidden to see Kirby. Only my sister and I were allowed to see him. My mother cried all night, while my father kept putting the blame on our brother, saying that he was exaggerating. After many months of recovery, both physically and mentally, Kirby was released from the hospital. My parents had the audacity to ask him to come home. However, they got this response: "I would not come back to this house even if it were the last place on earth. From now on, I am also motherless. I hope you both pay for everything you did to me." My brother moved in with his paternal grandparents, who didn't know anything until that moment, and took a protective measure against our parents. He said that my sister and I were welcome to come and visit him whenever we wanted, and we did. I'm sure I spent more time with him than at home with our parents. But the last straw came when we found out at a family party that my father had lied to our whole family. He said that our brother had dropped out of school to live in the world of drugs and that he left home, taking his things and the money we were saving for my college. That money wasn't even earned by them. It's Kirby and Lucy who are raising money for my college. Kirby has worked a lot of odd jobs, and now he's working and saving money because, according to him, I deserve a better future. My sister and I got furious. We told the whole truth to our family, who were incredulous and very angry with our father and mother. The only ones who stood by them were my paternal grandparents, who said that it was human to err and that my parents did nothing wrong. They claimed that my parents were just ashamed of what they did, but no one would listen, and they abandoned my parents to the wind and went after Kirby to apologize. Interestingly, Kirby called me the next day asking why people he hadn't spoken to in months came to apologize to him, and he didn't know why. A year after the incident, Karen's parents showed up at our door and asked if Kirby was home. When we said no, they apologized for what happened and left. Later, I found out that what they wanted was to compensate Kirby, giving him all the money that was for college and Karen's car. My brother said thanks, but added that he doesn't forgive Karen and never will. He said that if she ever shows up in front of him, he'll tell her some harsh truths to her face. Her parents accepted this and left. Currently, my big brother is much better, but he is not cured. He has many nightmares of that day, which lead to anxiety attacks, and it is necessary for someone to go to him to calm him down. I want to be there to help my brother and to get rid of the toxic environment we call home, so I thought I would move in with Kirby. First, I spoke to my brother. He was hesitant at first, but accepted and spoke to his grandparents, who agreed. I spoke to Lucy, and she thought it was a great idea. However, when I spoke to my parents, it was a completely different story. My mother burst into tears, and my father was desperate, saying that everyone had already abandoned them and now their youngest son too. I got irritated and told him that I had already abandoned him that damn afternoon and that he would never have me back. My father, a man in his 50s who always said that crying was for sissies, started crying like a baby, saying that he had already lost everything and didn't want to lose me too. I couldn't stand that situation, so I left the house and went to a friend's house to vent. My friend suddenly scolded me, saying that I shouldn't abandon my parents like that. His older brother, Steve, who owns this Reddit account, said he didn't know anything and told him to shut up. Steve said that his brother was someone with a weak mind and that I should seek more people's opinions. He introduced me to Reddit and asked me to ask this question at the end. What do I do, guys? I, like many of you, feel really bad for OP's brother. This type of situation is traumatizing for anyone to go through and will take years, if not decades, to fully heal from. The parents' actions at the start I can understand, but I still feel it was very extreme without all of the context. I do not blame the guy for not wanting any contact with his parents anymore, but the craziest thing in my opinion is how the parents view themselves as the victim. One user named Orchid III had this to say. Wow, your parents still see themselves as the victims here. If they really wanted to make amends to your brother, they should see a therapist to understand how toxic their behavior was and is. The fact that they took this person's word over their own son's is so awful. This person is the reason why people who have really been raped have a hard time getting the help they need. I truly hope the police keep the fact that she falsely accused your brother of on record. I can almost guarantee this won't be the last time she does this to an innocent young man. I really hope her parents punished her so that she knows the consequences of her toxic behavior. I am so sorry that your parents assaulted your brother so badly and then compounded it by visiting him in the hospital. Then, they had the audacity to ask him to come back and live with them and were shocked when he said no. The fact that they lied and said he left school to do drugs shows they are just embarrassed by all of this and come across as not really caring about what they have done. I agree you need to move out as soon as possible. My concern is if anyone accused you of doing anything, would they take the accuser's word over yours even if you could prove your innocence? As someone said in another post, your parents seem to have the mindset of guilty until proven innocent. Don't allow them to guilt you into staying with them. They caused this situation. They now have to live with the consequences of their actions. Your brother should accept the money from Karen's parents, but should also add that he expects them to administer harsh punishment to her. They should also ensure that this never happens again by informing her that if she does, she will be thrown out of their home. Also, they need to ensure that she goes to a therapist who will help her see how toxic her behavior was and is. I truly hope the school has expelled her, as anything less is rug sweeping. I think your brother needs to get a written letter from Karen stating the false accusation and apologizing for it. I truly hope your brother is getting the therapy he needs for the horrible abuse he suffered from your parents. I would also say that someone should ask your parents how they would feel if they were falsely accused and their parents took the accuser's word and beat them up. Until they truly admit that their behavior was abusive and completely uncalled for, your family unit will never be healthy. I hope that your brother is getting all the help he needs to get healthy physically and emotionally. He must feel so betrayed by your parents' abusive and horrible behavior. When you move out, ensure if you go and live with your brother that any meetings with your parents are at a park or cafe. That way, your brother won't see them and be further traumatized. I truly hope you, your brother and sister can live away from your toxic parents and live your best lives. Take care of yourselves and all the best for the future. Hugs to you and your siblings. Another user named Angela is not my name left this comment. I agree that you should be able to live with different family members. I am afraid though that your parents will still feel entitled to you and want to come visit you, which would cause your big bro stress he doesn't need. Talk about it more with your grandparents and see how they'd be willing to help. Then user for administration 41 said, given the clear evidence of the parent's propensity to violence, the grandparent should be able to mount a legal case to apply for guardianship of OP if that was something they are open to. The very next day, OP provided us with an update. Well guys, a lot has happened since I last wrote here. I had a question, but thanks to you all for helping me make up my mind. Thanks to all of you for the supportive comments, and thanks to the owner of this account who supports me. Well, let's get started. I ended up having to run away from home because my parents forbade me to leave the house. So I waited for them to leave the house together because they were going shopping and they never took me along. They think I'm a kid and that I would ask them to buy a bunch of junk. But I didn't expect what happened next. My parents made me go with them, which was a big problem. So I thought I would just take the basics, put them inside a backpack, and take some snacks to cover it up. As soon as we got to the market, I asked to go to the bathroom. Luckily, they were so obsessed with how the price of food had gone up that my dad just told me to go and come back soon. Plot twist, I didn't come back. I ran away from the market as quickly as possible and took the bus that came closest to Kirby's grandparents' house. When I got there, it was Kirby's grandmother who received me and told me to be at ease while Kirby and his grandfather weren't home. When they arrived, I told them everything that had happened, including what I had posted on Reddit. My brother's reaction was not what I expected. He said that it was very irresponsible of me to run away and that it was dangerous because something could have happened. It may seem strange, but I like it when he scolds me. It shows that he cares about me, unlike our parents. I could disappear for 3 days and they wouldn't miss me. That already happened, and they just got mad when they found out I was with my brother. I accepted the scolding in a good way and asked if I could stay. He said, "You will come back here even if I send you back to their house, so you better stay." I was very happy and hugged him. His grandparents were also very happy with my brother's decision, but my joy disappeared when he said that I would have to notify my parents. I protested because I knew they would come for me, but my brother said, "But they are responsible for you, and if you don't tell them, they can call the police and say that I kidnapped you and that I'm holding you hostage." I called my mom. She barely answered and started screaming at me, asking where I was. When I said where I was, they got even more furious and started screaming in an alien language in a way that everyone around me could hear. I could have stood there listening to them yell at me, but I hung up when I realized that Kirby was uncomfortable with the yelling. After the aggression, he became sensitive to screaming. He cursed my parents for what they did to him. I got angry and said that they could come and take me by force, but my brother said that they are aggressive but not idiots. They are idiots. He added that he has a protective measure against them, so if they approach, we would call the police. How wrong he was. An hour and a half later, they were banging on the front door, cursing and screaming at my brother for generations to come. Kirby's grandparents told them to leave. Otherwise, they would call the police. This made them even more furious, and they went back to banging on the door. I wanted to go there and tell them to go away, but Kirby needed me. I needed to hold him because he wanted to go there and show those two his anger. He has a lot of anger built up towards them. He even said once that he wanted to kill them both slowly and painfully. I even agree with that, but I don't think he should get his hands dirty with them. Then they broke into the door and started to destroy the house in search of me. At that moment, I decided to go down to send them away. I was asking my brother to calm down so that I could go down and leave him safe. Then my mother gave a scream, the loudest I had ever heard from her, and my father had shut up. After convincing my brother to stay in the room, I went downstairs and the scene couldn't be more depressing. My dad was slumped and shaking on the floor while my mom was over him, crying and calling to him in vain. I looked at Kirby's grandparents and saw that the grandfather was holding a taser. I think we all know what happened, right? When my mother saw me, she started screaming, "You see what they did to your father? Call the police. They must be arrested," I replied, saying that if I called the police, the one who would be arrested would be her for breaking the rules of the protective measure. She ignored this and continued to scream for us to call an ambulance for her husband. We ignored her and said that as soon as my father recovered, they were to leave and never come back. When my father was returning to his normal self, he was strangely silent. He was totally beaten and defeated. Then suddenly, my brother had come down and my mother immediately attacked him, which gave me this beautiful dialogue, mad mother against angry brother. She started blaming him for everything, saying that he was the reason that all our relatives had abandoned her, that her children were turning their backs on her. That's when she started to victimize herself, saying that she was just an innocent woman who went to church every Sunday and that she was a good person who didn't deserve to go through that. I don't know what she meant by that. No one would feel sorry for her just because of that. Kirby was silent throughout her hysterical crisis, but then she crossed all lines. She said he was supposed to apologize to them for destroying their lives and tell everyone in the family that he had forgiven them. That was the limit. Kirby, very angry, gave her a slap so hard that she fell to the ground. My mother started screaming again, but Kirby told her to shut the fuck up or he would break her teeth on the base of the cane. He screamed a lot, all the things he'd held back all these years, about how miserable people they were and how they dug their own graves and how they didn't deserve to have anyone around them. He added that when they die, he's going to make a point of pissing on their coffins. My mom started to get even angrier and got up to hit Kirby, but I pushed her against the wall. She started yelling at me too, saying I would go to hell for abandoning her, calling me a disgusting gay who would go to hell. As a side note, I'm bisexual and I made the mistake of telling my parents. Surprisingly, my father was okay with it, but my mother was really furious, saying I would go to hell and forbade me to be bisexual. She even introduced me to her friends' daughters at church. It's disgusting and makes the girls uncomfortable. The funny thing was that when I told my brother, he just said, "So you'll give me a nephew? Let's be cool." My brother started to send them away and said that they should pay for the damage they did to the house. Otherwise, we would file a complaint. My mother started laughing, saying that I wouldn't have the courage to report my own mother. I said that what I have most is courage and that I would have the satisfaction of seeing her arrested again. She made a bunch of excuses, saying that we didn't have proof, but my brother refuted her, saying that they were the very proof that they were there because besides fingerprints and cameras, he had video evidence of what had happened. It took a little longer before she accepted her defeat, and soon they left. But my brother wanted to leave the icing on the cake. When my mother was getting in the car, Kirby shouted, "Hey bitch, I wish you could die in my father's place." And in response, she gave the middle finger and got in the car screaming, which made my brother laugh. You know that victory laugh after a long game of his favorite game? Yes, it was that laugh. Soon after, our sister called us saying that our mother had called her, claiming she was attacked by our brother and that she was supposed to bring me back home to fix me. My sister said she was very proud of me for standing up to them and that Kirby should have broken the cane over their heads. Now I'm living with my brother as I always wanted, and it's been wonderful. He wants my custody at all costs and is threatening my parents to give it to him for good or bad. My mother said she would not leave me with an abuser. I think she believes the fact that I'm bisexual is because I was abused by my brother. How ridiculous, isn't it? I think now it's just a case of waiting for her to give in. I think everything will go on track for now because I had this conversation with my brother before he went to sleep. He was wondering what it would be like if his father was alive. I replied that maybe his life would be a little better, but he said maybe, maybe not. If he hadn't died, maybe I wouldn't have suffered the aggression, but then I wouldn't have my two angels in my life. And he gave me a kiss on the forehead. I must admit that was so sweet. I hugged him. I love him so much, and I know that we will protect each other at all costs. Thank you very much to everyone who supported me. I hope that no one has to suffer what we suffered, and for those who think that our story is false, believe me, I wish it was too. I wanted us to be a good family that welcomes and protects itself regardless of the situation, but no, this can only happen in my dreams. See you guys, maybe I'll update with the result of the process, so see you then. User Orchid III said this. Wow, I didn't expect your birth givers to be so entitled. I am really glad that you are staying with your older brother and that your grandfather protected you both. Please get them charged with breaking and entering and also assault. They still consider themselves the victims here and haven't taken any ownership for their behavior towards you or your brother. I can't get over the fact that they wanted your brother, whom they nearly killed, to apologize to them. What the hell is wrong with them? They should be groveling for his forgiveness, not the other way around. As for your mother preaching about you going to hell, if anyone is going to hell, it is your parents. Do your birth givers go to church? If they do, it would be a good idea to inform their church of their abusive behavior. Please follow through with charging these people so that the police have a record of them trespassing and assaulting you. Also, inform the neighbors where you are now living that these people are legally not allowed to come there. Additionally, inform family members about their latest toxic behavior so these individuals can't lie about it. Obtain the services of a lawyer for when they escalate their awful behavior. Ensure that you keep an eye out for if and when they start stalking you all. If you haven't started a you folder for all interactions with these individuals, do so immediately. The fact that your birth giver told your sister that she was going to bring you home to fix you is concerning. Please get a protective order against both of these people, as I wouldn't put it past them to try and kidnap you. Inform your school that these individuals are not to be around you for any reason. Please be extra cautious, as these people have shown you all how toxic and awful they are. Take care of yourselves and all the best for the future. Another user named Berserk Tyrannosaurus said the following. I read the previous part, and I congrat you for sticking to your guns and leaving your toxic parents. These are the kind who never change, no matter how hard reality slaps them. They need to be left alone and rot in misery for eternity. Also, is better you get them charged for breaking their protective measures and tell everyone of their abusive and entitled behavior, included your mother's homophobia. If they can't change, is better warn people of their toxicity, or else another unfortunate soul will get under their claws. Also, is good you get therapy, this kind of things leave scars. Then the next day, OP provided us yet another update. Hey guys, thank you so much for your support, and believe me, I'm fine and my brother is better. However, fine is not enough for him. He wants my custody at all costs and is going after my parents with everything he has. Well, I wouldn't be here if it was just to say we're fine, so let's get to the story. We were having a quiet afternoon until there was a knock on the door, which had already been repaired by a friend of Kirby's grandfather. I went to answer it and was very surprised to see my father there. I sent him away at once, but he said he just wanted to talk and didn't want to cause a fuss. I told him to fuck off and said we'd only talk in court. However, my dad insisted, and Kirby's grandparents threatened to call the police. To our surprise, Kirby said to let him come in. We questioned him, but he just said my dad was a pushy idiot and that he wouldn't go away easily, so it was better to let him in to get it over with. So we let him in, but we were prepared in case he got aggressive. Kirby sat at the kitchen table and we all stayed in the kitchen for safety. Kirby's grandmother was recording to have one more piece of proof that my father broke the provisional measure. The conversation went as follows. Kirby, very brave of you to come back here after all you've done. Father, I'm sorry, I swear I'll pay for all the damage. Kirby, pay? Of course, you can solve everything with money, right? But I'm not talking about material goods, that's replaceable. What you did to me is priceless. Father, I know, I'm sorry. I swear I would give my life to go back in time. I would do everything differently. Kirby, yeah, but unfortunately, you can't go back in time and the damage has already been done. You destroyed me. You destroyed your family. Father, but it was an accident. If you had told us from the beginning, maybe it would have been different. Kirby, Moore said you who didn't want to listen to me. Now do you know what you did to me? You made me feel that I was not worthy to live. You made me want to die. Do you have any idea what it's like to feel that? No, because you are a assault, and the aggressor will never feel the fear that the victim felt, you son of a bitch. At that moment, Kirby started to cry, but it was a cry of anger and resentment that he had kept bottled up for all these years. My father continued to ask in vain, but my brother said that the fact that he wanted to apologize was not because he regretted what he did, but rather to feel good about himself. However, my dad kept apologizing so much that my brother threw down his ultimatum right there, even though he was close to having another anxiety attack. Kirby said, do you want forgiveness? So here's what we're going to do. You're going to give me custody of my brother, you're going to pay his child support, and you're never going to try to get close to me, him, or any of us again. Or else I guarantee you, Ricard, that I will make your days a real hell. My father agreed instantly. I'll tell you that I don't feel sorry for my father, but I've never seen him as defeated as he was at that moment. I think the shock of his actions finally hit him hard, but I don't feel sorry for him. He deserves this. He deserves to feel the misery he caused our family. Soon after all this, he left, saying he was going to try to convince my mother to give up my custody. He also asked me for forgiveness, but I just ignored him. So at the exact moment he walked out the door, my brother broke down. I think his courage had dropped at that moment. He started crying and fell to his knees on the floor, hyperventilating and sweating very cold. We took him to the living room so he could lie down. We gave him his medicine for anxiety, but nothing seemed to help. I called my sister and told her everything that had happened. She came immediately and we all stayed in the room trying to calm him down. My sister kept telling my brother that at that moment he was one of the bravest people we knew. However fearful he was strong enough to stay in the same room as my father, his abuser, and his murderer. After many hours, my brother finally calmed down and managed to sleep. So, just in case, Lucy and I slept with him because he could have many nightmares after that. But of course, nothing could end like that. My mom called us hours later asking what that demon Kirby had done to her husband. She was accusing my brother of having bewitched her sweet hubby and that now he wanted to give everything to him. My sister just told her to fuck off and said that at least one of them had come to their senses. Well, again, I hope everything works out and my mom finally comes to her senses and does the right thing. Thanks so much for everyone's support, and thanks to you, Steve, who owns this account and has always been there for me since I told my story. Well, I'm going now. I'll send you anything. See you later. P.S. For those wondering why I use fake names, I don't want my brothers to have their privacy invaded by using their real names. The final update in the story was made about 2 months from that previous update. Hey guys, it's been a while. Well, you deserve at least the latest update, and I can say I'm so happy because it's finally over. It's really over. I'm free of that place and those people. Now, let's get to the update that you all liked. My mother didn't want my custody in any way. My father threatened her in every possible way, but she didn't care. She said she would never give up on me and that she would do anything to get me back. Since she was not giving in, we resorted to psychological pressure. We informed everyone in our family about what was happening and how my brother wanted custody of me. My family understood and directly confronted my mother, saying that it was the least she and my father should do for the past mistakes. However, my mother blocked all of our relatives, claiming that my brother had spelled them all. This is typical. She sees it as witchcraft. But my mother proved to be completely unreasonable and out of control. A week after I moved in, she called me. In that overbearing Karen tone, she said, "I'll give you 2 options. You're going to come home without complaining and we're going to forget about it, or you're going to come back and that plague is going to suffer the consequences." I didn't lower my head to her and replied that my brother had a name that she had given herself and that he wouldn't go back to that house even if he were dead. She hung up on me. I was afraid she might do something to Kirby, so I called to let him know. He told me not to worry and that anyone would let me know if something happened. Then the police knocked on our neighbor's door, an elderly lady who was very kind. The police had been called due to a report of child abuse in the house, and since they didn't think they would leave, I quickly put the pieces together. My mother had called the police, but she was in such an advanced state of insanity that she got our address wrong, which made the police go to the wrong house. As we suspected it was her, hours later she called me, saying that she could withdraw the complaint if I went home without complaining. Of course, I told her to go to hell and hung up on her. My brother apologized to the neighbor for what had happened, and then he finally decided that since she wanted to play dirty, we would play dirty too. We used our last weapon, our maternal grandmother, the only person we knew my mother hated more than my brother. It was difficult to find her contact information because, unfortunately, our grandmother simply hates me and my sister for the simple fact that we are our father's children. Yes, she is the typical grandmother who has her favorite grandson, which in our case is Kirby, giving us an absurd advantage. After literally hunting down her number and address, we finally found her. My brother called her and told her everything, from the assault to our current problem, and asked if she could help him. Her only response was that she would be there as soon as possible. Believe me, an hour and 30 minutes later, she arrived in our city, which was great because my brother only asked her to put my mother on the line, and she agreed to the deal. She went straight to my parents' house for a surprise visit, which my mom absolutely hates. She called me and Lucy, asking if my brother had anything to do with it, but we just ignored her. It was even fun. Our grandmother was driving our parents crazy on purpose, and they couldn't fight back because I know my mother is greedy. My grandmother has a good amount of land that, if sold, could support someone for a long time. That's right, in addition to being assholes, idiots, and psychopaths, my parents are also greedy. I think my brother must have fallen into the wrong family because it's just impossible. After 2 weeks of torturing our parents, my mother finally asked when our grandmother would leave. She replied that she would only leave when my mother finally gave up custody of me. My mother did not agree and started wanting our grandmother to leave, so she played the final card. Either my mother would give up custody of me or she would be completely out of her will. Son or money? Guess which one won. So we went to court, and believe me, if looks could kill, my parents would already be buried. The judge reviewed all the history of what happened and became irritated while wondering how my parents escaped justice so easily. Unfortunately, in our world, money is often worth more than someone's crimes. My father even hid his face, but my mother was there, confident, thinking that she hadn't done anything wrong. I think the most tense moment was when Kirby and my mother faced each other. Believe me, if you were there and saw the looks they gave each other, it was scary. Sometimes I forget that these two used to live together. My mother could pretend to be normal and be your friend, but she is fake and manipulative. If you do or say something she doesn't agree with, you are seen as a threat and are extremely criticized for it. My brother, on the other hand, has such an open mind that it almost scares me. He can make friends with almost any type of person. If you ever see a young man using a cane who smiles and waves, you can be pretty sure it could be my brother. So answer me, why until now can I not understand how these two contradictory beings could share the same body? Going back to the process, it was very complicated, but at the same time, it was fast. After all, my parents didn't dare to fight for me. Our lawyer made an agreement where I would stay with my brother, and my parents would have to pay a very generous alimony. My mother questioned why they had to pay child support if I was now my brother's responsibility, but both my father and our grandmother told her to shut up and agree to the terms. After a lot of time and anxiety, we finally got it. Now I can live with my brother and they would have no rights over me. Exactly 30 minutes after the results, I deleted my parents' contact information. I don't need it anymore. They will now be part of a past that I want to forget. But wait, there's more. Our grandmother made a revelation before she left. My mother had never been in the will. Our grandmother took her out right after she married my father. It was even funny. She literally traded my mother for something she will never have. The only person in her will is my brother, and you have no idea how good that is from my point of view. Our brother, our Kirby, got everything he wanted and deserved. I don't know if I would call it divine justice or something like that, but yes, he deserved it, and we couldn't be happier for it. I thank you, Reddit people, and the owner of this account. I'm happy. You helped and advised me through this horrible chapter of my life, and now it has ended with a happy ending, even more personal. I hope I don't have to come back here unless I have to. The same user, Orchid III, from the previous post, left this comment under this final update. I am so sorry that your brother was assaulted by your egg and sperm donors. They should hang their heads in shame. I am so glad your brother got custody of you and that you, he, and your sister will now have no contact with these toxic people. I can't get over the fact that even after they assaulted your brother, who was proven innocent, they still tried to blame him for their actions. Are they so crazy that they think they can blame him for their abusive behavior and that everyone will let them get away with the assault? I truly hope that they are miserable for the rest of their lives and that everyone who is important to them knows about their assault on your brother. As for Karen, I hope her false accusations follow her everywhere she goes and that it is put on her record. Hopefully, any employer will read about her false accusations and think twice about employing her, because if she has done this to your brother, what is stopping her from doing it at her workplace? Take care of yourselves. Then the owner of the actual account, not OP, said this under the post. Hello, this is the owner of the account. Well, I figured you guys wanted to know what happened to Karen. I don't know if the information I have for you will be enough, but I know you will like it. Karen's parents literally threw her out of their home, so since she had no one else to pay for her studies, she was asked to withdraw from school. Since none of her relatives and ex-friends wanted anything to do with her, she left. I don't know where and I don't care. I just hope that if she hasn't changed her way of being, you won't find her. I'm happy for OP and those that she holds dear. Unfortunately, it's not often that people are able to escape abusive parents. I understand that parents wanted things to go back to the way they were, but after being told to such an extreme to leave him alone, they should have just gave up on OP's brother. What they needed above all else is their own therapy. I know some might think that they don't deserve the luxury of therapy, but nevertheless, that's what they should have done instead. OP is very lucky to have such a loving sibling like her brother, and I hope they can both get consistently good professional help so that they can live a peaceful life here on out.